All right, now that the U.S. has officially left Afghanistan, one big question remains. What's next? Our next guest tries to answer that question in his latest book, Enemies and Allies. It takes readers behind closed doors in the Middle East through exclusive interviews with some of the most complex and controversial and interesting leaders in the world. Joining us now is New York Times bestselling author Joel Rosenberg. Joel is also the editor-in-chief of All Israel News. Joel, I got my copy. It's amazing. I know Lindsay's got hers. I saw just a second ago Mike Pence tweeted out in support of it. I mean, talk about a way to kick off a book tour. It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, huge congratulations on the book,
grateful.
Joel. Well, we're so glad to have you with here, especially during this time, because in your book, you reveal these conversations that you personally had with leaders of Israel, Arab presidents, prime ministers, kings, crowns, princes. The list goes on. But based on your conversation and the current events, what is the future of the Middle East, especially as it pertains to the relationship with the U.S.?
Well, Lindsay, as I describe in the book, there are really two competing narratives, two competing trend lines that couldn't be more different. On the one side, the radical Islamists they feel like the wind is at their back, that Allah's on their side. They're gaining ascendancy. They're becoming more aggressive. And with President Biden's surrender to the Taliban, this has just exploded. The greatest TV propaganda ad for radical Islam that there ever was after 9/11. That's one trend line. Very dangerous. Iran's close to getting the bomb. On the other side, Arab countries are deciding Israel's not the enemy. Israel's the ally. We should join forces with Israel. And that's why when everyone said President Trump would never be able to make peace in the Middle East, he actually should get a Nobel Peace Prize because he persuaded Israel and 4 Arab countries to make peace. So these are the two competing trends, and the United States has to be strong with our allies and put the fear of God in our enemies.
You know, Joel, you just mentioned this, that all these people were wrong about President Trump. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He couldn't get peace done. He did everything, and the world was a better place for it. What do you think most U.S. politicians get wrong about the Middle East?
Yeah, and let me just say, Sean, as you know, I was very skeptical and critical even of Donald Trump in 2016. I would have considered myself a never-Trumper, but when I sat down in the Oval Office after several years, I said, listen, Mr. President, you have blown me away with your ability to rip up that Iran nuclear deal and put a maximum pressure campaign on Iran, move the embassy to Jerusalem, stand strong with Israel and our Arab allies. This is great stuff. Plus, the Abraham Accords were coming. But most leaders, and particularly President Biden, they fundamentally don't understand the threat of radical Islamism. You would think 20 years later they do. But it's not just the Taliban. If President Biden can't handle the Taliban, how are we going to trust him to contain and neutralize the nuclear threat from Iran? And that's my big concern, Sean, is the Iranian supreme leader, he wants a nuclear 9/11. Okay? He doesn't want to take out skyscrapers in the United States. He wants to take out cities. And we need strength to face him down.
Yes.
You know, that's why Prime Minister Naftali Bennett of Israel was just in the U.S. recently talking to Biden about that. What will happen if they have to go attack Iran? What if Biden does enter this Iran nuclear deal? What does that mean for the rest of the Middle East? How will the Middle East respond to that if Biden does get back into this deal?
Yeah, well, this is one of the central challenges that I describe in the book. I interviewed Defense Minister Benny Gantz and the top leadership in Israel. I got to tell you, Lindsay, Israel, the new prime minister put on a good face. He was very kind. He wants to build a relationship with Biden, and he wants to help Biden change course on Iran. But Israel and the Arab world is becoming deeply nervous. They see weakness in Washington. It's rattling our allies. It's emboldening our enemies. And I'm telling you right now, Israeli leaders are talking to me and other reporters behind the scenes, off the record. They're getting ready to have to strike Iran. We hope it doesn't happen. But this is the worries. If the United States is going to abandon the Middle East, Israel and the Arab allies, we're on our own.
Joel, real quick before I let you go, you talked to all these Arab leaders firsthand. What does our current withdrawal from Afghanistan mean for our standing going forward with them?
Well, I think the biggest question is what does Saudi Arabia do, right? They're not currently part of the the Abraham Accords. But I think the Saudis have to be weighing, you know what, if Biden and the Americans are leaving, if we can't trust them, then the only people we can trust to really help us neutralize the Iranian threat would be Israel. There's a tectonic shift going on in Arab thinking. Who's my friend? Who's my ally? They always thought in the Arab world that Israel was the enemy. They're changing their tune. And I'd be watching the Saudis to possibly make some major moves in the next months and maybe a year ahead.
Absolutely fascinating. Again, the book is Enemies and Allies. It's so great. First-hand account from these leaders around the world that we all need to know more of. Joel Rosenberg, best of luck for the book. Thanks for always being here.
Thanks, guys. Great to be with you, especially on an important topic like this.